turns out I was right. Nefertari, Cobra, and Vivi are of the clan of D. But anyways, welcome back to the Straw Hat Duo, and today we're going over chapter 1085 of One Piece, titled The Death of Nefertari Cobra. Well, that's a little spoilery, isn't it? Almost like it's announcing what's going to happen in this chapter. But the cover page of this story is Frankie, who looked like he just defeated a giant crab and is encouraging hatchling turtles on their way to the sea. And he's sitting there crying, saluting with a departure sign pointing towards the sea. This chapter, it starts off right where we left off the previous one. Eem, whatever the hell his name is, or her name, who knows, sitting on the empty throne, which is not so empty at this point in time, and Cobra looking up at him, baffled. He's like, no one's ever supposed to sit there. No individual should have the power to control the world. And then Imu starts talking, and Imu talks in third person, it seems, and addresses himself as Mu. And he says, Mu shall address two of the points being discussed, and thou must answer a single question in return. Cobra coughs and goes, who are you? And then says, I've heard the name Imu before. It could be a coincidence, but one of the first 20 was also called that. So this is interesting. So either this is a direct descendant of the first 20 carrying out the name, because it could be Imu, could be the last name, not the first name, such as Nefertari. So it could be that, just a family generation, or this individual could have the immortal surgery done on him. I don't remember what it's called, but the op fruit. He mentions that he's heard the name before, and one of the first 20 was called that. And Imu responds, such courtesy teeters on impertinence. It'll not be dignified with an answer. Imu's not going to tell him. However, those initial queries shall be addressed. D is the moniker of our ancient enemy. In recent times, it is cropped up more frequently. However, it's nothing more than a faint echo. Those who carry the name do not even know of its true meaning now. And yet, this irritation only endures due to Queen Lily's grave blunder 800 years ago. The same can be said of those irksome scholars investigating the so-called Void Century. So, Cobra at this point, he's like, blunder? This is a very text-heavy chapter. Sabo does show up a little bit later on, and there's some action, hence the title of the chapter, but we'll get to that point. A lot of important information that was dropped in this one. Imu says, without that blunder, there would be no pirates chasing the poneglyphs or in pursuit of the treasure either. If it were not for Lily's incompetence, those vexing relics would never have been scattered all over the world. Lily had something to do with the relics being distributed throughout the world. What she did is still unknown. This shocks Cobra, obviously, as it would anybody. Those poneglyphs are like a sacred treasure, honestly. Imu says, the release of the poneglyphs was the worst possible outcome for us, so one must wonder whether it was truly a mistake or if it was actually part of some larger plan. And at this point, all of the Gorosei pull guns on Cobra. And Imu says, the truth undoubtedly lies in the letter Lily left. So, pray, tell, was it a deliberate choice to only refer to her as Queen Lily of the House of Nefertari? Go ahead and divulge her full name on the letter as it was written. I'm looking at this here, and I think this might be just a translation, but the way Imu says, so pray, tell, I'm thinking he's meaning pray as in P-R-E-Y, such as that is Imu's pray now. I'm sure we'll figure something out with the official release or in context later. Cobra at this point kind of thinks to himself, yep, they've got me now. There really is no chance I'm leaving this room alive. And he speaks to him, says, I take it there's no fib I could tell that would satisfy you enough to let me go. The big mustache Gorosei says, your fate was determined the moment you saw the great Imu. Cobra's like, yeah, not surprising. They can't let anyone who knows the world's greatest taboo has been broken. Then we see Sabo. Sabo, who is watching on, he's listening in, and he's like, the atmosphere in here feels a little sinister. What's going on? Cobra continues on saying, the truth is, The letter from Alabasta's ruler 8 centuries ago was signed by Queen Nefertari, D. Lily. As soon as Im hears the letter D, there's a close-up of his eye, and all of a sudden a shadowy arrow shoots out and hits Cobra, going straight through him. Right as this happens, Sabo leaps out of his hiding and uses Fire Fist on all the Gorosei, and Im, it seems, also, because it seems like Im has come down the stairs and attacked. He uses Fire Fist on all of them and then uses Smothered Mate. Apparently it's a chess move. Im goes, where did this one come from? He looks angry as it appears he transforms, maybe? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gorosei, the 5 elders. So I don't see... Well, actually... Oh, wow. I didn't notice this the first time I read it. But all of the Gorosei transform into creatures, I guess. And this... You see the picture of Sabo standing over Cobra, and this is the picture that was in the paper of when they said that he killed Cobra. And you see a snail there that takes a picture of him. Cobra's still alive at this point in time. He says, you are Luffy's brother, aren't you? And he goes, you're with the Revolutionary Army, and yet you still stepped in to save me. Sabo's like, yeah, our cause is more concerned with the monsters that sit above the kings and queens of the world. Do you know Luffy somehow? Cobra's like, yeah, he stepped in to save me once, too. They reminisce a little bit, and Sabo's like, yeah, it sounds like something he'd do. And then all of the creatures, one of them looks like a giant bird, and the 3 others kind of look like blobs. I mean, I couldn't tell you what exactly they are, but there's 5 of those shadows. And then behind them, almost as in like a creeping darkness, and it looks like it has eyes. So I'm guessing that's either Im or Im's presence. Either way, Sabo picks up Cobra and starts trying to run. Cobra's like, leave me, I'm dead weight. Sabo tries to do the right thing by saving him. However, Cobra goes, tell them we share the moniker D. I finally know the path that Alabasta must follow now. And then we have a flashback within the flashback, a flashback of Sabo's within the flashback of Sabo's. Talk about being convoluted. Sabo is telling this story in flashback fashion. In the flashback of the story, he's having a flashback. This is when Sabo realizes, as a kid with Ace and Luffy, so you both have a D in your name. Is it some sort of coincidence? And Luffy's like, oh, I guess. Ace's like, who cares? A name's a name. Do you want a D in your name? Ace's like, you can be Sadbo. And Sabo's like, why'd you put it there? And as he's thinking about this, an arrow, shadowy arrow from Im shoots. You can only assume it's from Im. We've only seen Im use this attack. So shoots through and goes straight through Cobra and Sabo. We see Sabo spit out a bunch of blood. Sabo yells out for him. Cobra's like, the poneglyphs must be protected. Fly the flag that heralds the world's eventual dawn. A lot of that text bubble is covered up by a roar from one of the elders. It's enough so that you can read it. I'm pretty sure what he's reading off here is what was in the letter. The poneglyphs must be protected. Fly the flag that heralds the world's eventual dawn. Nefertari D. Lily. I'm counting on you, Sabo. Obviously, that last part is not him reading from that. He's covered in blood. He stands between the elder that's trying to attack and Sabo. It seems Sabo gets away. Then we get to find out what happened to Vivi as well, which this one's a bit interesting. Through a wall, a peek hole in the wall, we see one of the elders look over and go, who's there? And we see an eye. And then we see who the eye belongs to. It is Wapol. He goes, you know, he's dead. Cobra the Senile has gone and got himself killed. I never liked him, but how could I celebrate after witnessing something so terrifying? I've stumbled across the biggest skeleton in the government's closet. I don't want to even know who that was. They will end me. And he's freaking out. He turns around and starts running. Before we get to that point, we see the second half of the Reverie where they took a break and then they came back. It's announced that it seems King Cobra and King Wapol are not yet present. We just received word that the 2 of them will not be attending and we will proceed without them. One of them says perhaps Cobra's impassioned speech drained him. Maybe he considers his job done now that the dissolution of the warlords has been approved. We see Neptune there as well. He looks a little concerned though. Then we see Shirahoshi and her brothers, so they got away. Shirahoshi going, you know, I was hoping to say bye to Vivi. Wonder where she went. And then we flash over to Vivi in, you know, typical Oda fashion. We get 2 more members confirmed of CP0 here. We see Vivi talking to the two members, and she's like, what's the big idea? You'd better untie me. Whose orders are you following? I'll tell the whole world about this. And we see Jabra and Khalifa that are now titled Cypherpol Aegis 0. They're both confirmed Cypherpol 0. They're like, you know, easy there. Not good at making friends. You want us to let you go? You got to be friendly to us. Khalifa's like, I'm afraid no one's going to help you, princess. Once your disappearance is made known, you'll probably live the rest of your life like a pet. You see all of the old CP9 here, as far as I could tell. They get noticed that apparently Shirahoshi has come out of the ordeal unscathed. Vivi's like, oh, thank goodness. And then Jabra mentions that the punks who ended up assaulting the Celestial Dragon that was trying to kidnap the princess, the mermaid, were members of the Straw Hat Fleet. They boldly proclaimed their victories, giving their names and everything. The guests in the courtyards were stunned. So they're a lot like who they're following, Luffy. Meanwhile, at the home of the gods, Fujitori's actions helped the revolutionary army free the slaves, and that obviously pissed off Green Bull. They fought a bit, so that's how that resolved. The two admirals fought a bit within themselves. Jabra's like, you know, what's the deal with this year's reverie? Vivi starts thinking to herself, yeah, like a pet. Looks like give me a break. It looks like I'm gonna have to do something about this. And then Wapol comes munching through the wall, because his devil fruit, he can eat anything. He starts eating through the wall and he's running. This catches all of Cypherpol 0 off guard for obvious reasons. Vivi takes advantage of the situation, jumps on Wapol's back, and starts going with him. CP0 is like, what was that? I think it was Wapol. They notice, wait a second, Vivi's gone. That's all there is to that. We see the wife of Wapol seeing Wapol run through, and she's like, oh, darling, I've been looking for you. Where the devil have you been? And who's that young lady with you? And then Vivi's like, hey, Wapol, how much farther are you gonna go? And Wapol's like, as far as it takes. I'll run to the end of the world if I have to. Vivi's like, yep, sounds good to me. Let's go. Wapol's wife obviously takes that out of context. Well, I mean, there's no real context to take that. She's like, don't tell me you're running away with a mistress, eloping to start a new life on the run. Misunderstandings, aren't they great? That's how this chapter ends, and if I remember correctly, there is no break next week. I was right about a few things with this chapter. I don't think we'll get any more on Eam. We might finish out the flashback of Sabo. I don't think we'll start the next chapter in the flashback. I think the next chapter will start with Sabo going, so that's how it happened. Maybe a panel, maybe a page, just kind of ending out the conversation with Dragon and Ivankov, and then we'll cut over to something else. I'm thinking it's either going to be Vivi that we cut over to, but I don't think we'll have a full chapter about that. So I think what will probably happen is a page or two of Sabo finishing out his story, not in the flashback, and then we'll go to the Straw Hats. We'll go back to Egghead Island to get a little bit more on that. It's been so long since we've been in Egghead Island. Pretty sure it's going to go back there. It just, I don't see anywhere else for it to go. Sabo's story is pretty much tied up. Vivi, we know who she's with anyways, or who she got away with. We know what happened to Cobra. We know Law and Kid, they're out for the count. It seems like the only loose end we don't really have tied up at this point is Egghead. There could be another conflict that starts. I think we're going to be going back to Egghead next chapter. And being as there's no break, it would make sense. Let me know what you thought about this chapter. Let me know what you think is going to go on in the next chapter. And we'll see you in the next one.